Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are, welcome. I'm Ann Murphy. I'm with the Empowered Fundraiser. Today we're going to talk about time management for development officers. And right off the bat, I want to say that when I say time management, I probably really mean energy management because with all the time in the world, it doesn't matter if you don't have the right kind of energy to bring to whatever the project or task is. So, what I want to put in the back of your mind right off the bat is to think as we go through this information today, think about what time of day for you is the right kind of energy to bring to particular tasks. Okay. So an example is for me in the morning, I can be very structured, very analytical. Like that's perfect time for me to spend on Excel spreadsheets. Whereas at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I am like expansive and creative and like fun and light. Whereas in the morning, I'm serious and get stuff done. And so I try to balance my day out accordingly. It's really hard to do sometimes, especially if your schedule is run by your organization, your meetings, the requests you have to be particular places at particular times. But if you can, block your calendar for certain activities during certain times of day. Highly recommend it. All right, so we're going to start out by talking about the thing that nobody wants to talk about, which is the fact that it does not matter when you open up your portfolio in the morning and you're wondering, who am I going to spend my energy on today? We cannot pour very much energy into the people who are not willing to speak to us, right? Most of us in development have large portfolios that have different kinds of donors within, right? We have discovery, we have cultivation, with solicitation, we have stewardship. And most of us are on annual goals. So, what we really need to be focused on are those people who were very likely to solicit in this fiscal year, right? Because you need to meet your metrics. Um, or if it's the back half of the fiscal year, you're queuing up your solicitations for the next fiscal year. But we can only focus our best energy on the people who are very likely to be in conversation with us. If there are no signs of life, right? Like, I hate to say this, and our organizational leaders would never want to hear this. And when I had big teams reporting to me, I didn't want to hear it either. But for those long shots, we need to set up systems or rely on the already existing systems to engage them. So, leaning on our marketing and communications products for engagement, leaning on our events team as our colleagues in engaging those potential long shots. That's not going to be where you're going to spend your very best energy. Where you're going to spend your very best energy is in that category of people who are very likely to be in gift conversation with us and who we are very likely to be able to solicit. Okay. And again, I mean, another word for this is cherry picking, right? You're going to cherry pick your portfolio to people who are likely, to take your call or Zoom or, be in an active email exchange with you or see you at an event. Like those people you're going to pour into versus the people who are in that discovery zone where we do need to be attempting, but without any sign of life. You cannot spend your very precious, very, very valuable best energy in that group of people. Okay, so here I am giving you permission to kind of downplay that part of your portfolio. If your job is entirely discovery, you still have some sense of who is going to be the best bet for you to pour into. And I encourage you to do that. The long shots are really important for us to engage, but for those of us on annual metrics, we can't just rely on that. We can't put all of our eggs into that basket. We want to focus on the people who are going to be in gift conversation with us. Now, the book, Generosity Crisis. I don't know if you can read this because it might be backwards. I have been binging on this book and all the content from the authors, who are Nathan Chappell and Brian Crimmins. This book basically debunks all of our industry's obsession with ratings. It's like, yes, all the ratings are important. They help us prioritize in a way, but they give no indication of propensity to give, no indication of where we fit in people's priorities. What really matters is engagement. Do they volunteer? Do they attend events? Do they engage online? Have we given them various forms of recognition, awards? Have we written about them? Have we nominated them for community awards? Some signs of engagement are more important than others, of course, but if there is absolutely no engagement, it's dicey to spend a lot of time and energy on those folks. I Now that I've been delving into the research, I just really question whether a development officer can possibly create, all by themselves, an experience between our donor and our organization that's going to lead to high lifetime gift value for that donor. Food for thought, okay? But within that group of people who are willing to give you their time to talk about gifts and who you are very likely to be able to solicit, as you figure out who that group is and you need to prioritize them, prioritize based on engagement. Okay, those who are already engaged, double down on those. All right, so that is my fact versus fiction matrix. Again, like I said, it's kind of a hot take slash unpopular opinion, but gotta let the discovery people autopilot and you gotta pour your energy into doubling down with the people who are already engaged. All right, I'm going to move on to the next time management tool. And hopefully you're getting a sense of how I track my time and my energy and how I relate it most closely to relationships, right? There are so many things that we can do in any given day. I consider pouring into relationships to be my highest priority every day. And I'll share with you how that works in this matrix, which is called the Eisenhower Matrix. I don't know why, it just is. Now might be a good time to grab a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, because what you can do is you can just draw out this axis for yourself. Because what we're going to do is we're going to put into this matrix our activities over the course of like a week and decide which ones are important, which ones are urgent, which ones are important and urgent, and so forth. So let me say a little bit about each of the quadrants. So we've got the important and urgent quadrant, which is a really easy place to spend a lot of your time, right? Important and urgent sounds like it's the most important place to spend your time. Now, it may be where you spend most of your time, but it's not necessarily the highest value way to spend your time. Where you really want to be focused is on those things that are important and not urgent, right? Those things that set you up for success, the systems, the reflection, the strategy. That's where you want to be spending a lot of your time. And I'm going to give you some examples in a moment. But as I'm sharing, think about what are those activities that you do over the course of a given week that are important, but they're not like screechingly urgent, right? They're not pressing per se. There's not an immediate deadline. And then there's the things that are not important and not urgent. And I'll share what those are in a second. You probably have a sense of the things that you do in any given week that are not important and not urgent. And some of that is really personal preference. An example would be maybe there is a completely optional social / business gathering for work. You may think of that as not important and not urgent. Somebody else may think of it as absolutely important and maybe urgent, maybe not, depending on what they want to accomplish by going to a particular event. So it is customized. It is personal for you and your style and the objectives that you have for your career. And then the final quadrant is the not urgent. Sorry, the not urgent. Did I already say not important? The urgent and not important one. And these are the things that are just like the tyranny of small events. So let me give you some examples. So in that juicy quadrant where we want to be spending most of our time, where we want to be spending most of our time versus where we end up spending most of our time, is that important and not urgent quadrant, right? The one in the upper left-hand corner where we can focus on relationships, right? This is pouring into the people around us. This is when you look at your org chart, when you look at your community, when you look at your neighborhood, what relationships do you need? Obviously your family and your friends and all that kind of stuff too. But in the work context, who are those relationships that you need to be pouring into? And it may not just be clients or donors. It may be the people in accounting. Hold on one second. It may be the people in accounting and finance. It may be your event team. It may be research. It may be your colleagues. It may be a specific direct report. It may be campus partners or your executive director. Just being really aware of the energy and attention that you're bringing to your relationships, which often is not urgent, right? But it's very important. Learning is another thing to really keep an eye on, scheduling time for growth and development. And we all are going to say at one point or another that we don't have time for it. Like that's a given. We're just going to think that we don't have time. We have to squeeze in time, right? And that might mean finding those opportunities like 6 months in advance and getting them on our calendar so that all other things are scheduled around it. Project management is an incredibly important way to spend your time. Oftentimes, if you're doing it right, it's not only is it not urgent to set up your projects, but it creates less urgency down the road, right? You can save all that adrenaline by doing the project management up front. I think of it as like pay me now or pay me later, right? You can front load your work on something important, or you can end up probably doing rework later down the road. Something that's important and not urgent oftentimes is strategy work. So what are we doing? How much time are we spending? What kind of energy are we pouring into it? Who are we involving in our strategy work so that down the road it's kind of tab A, slot B. What we're doing is we're executing on very thoughtful strategies, ideally that other people have signed off on, right? I have here your second brain. So you want to be pouring into opportunities to like build the system so that you don't have to do everything for the first time all the time. So an example would be creating a checklist for campus visits. I have on mine that somebody needs to remember to have the golf version of the umbrella with us when we're on a campus tour because it pours all the time in Oregon. And if we just have the little umbrella that most people like carry in their bags or their purses, or a lot of Oregonians don't even carry umbrellas. So I have it on my checklist, make sure that somebody has the golf umbrella. And of course, we will assign that out when the time comes. But creating those kind of things so that you don't have to think about everything from scratch ever again is really a great way for you to spend your time in that important and not urgent quadrant. And then course corrections, right? It takes time to take stock of how a project is going and make an adjustment. But oh my goodness, is that ever a good use of time? Rather than waiting until the end, doing the post-mortem and going, gosh, about halfway through, we saw that something was going awry. We didn't have time to do anything about it. So taking that time is important. I want to talk about the quadrant that is important and urgent. I call this the expected unexpected zone. We know that things are going to crop up and they're going to be time sensitive, right? Anything related to HR is going to be time sensitive, whether you're hiring somebody or there's a performance issue or somebody is going through it. you're always going to have things that pop up that are HR related that need to be taken care of right now. Your boss is going to need something all of a sudden. That's an expected unexpected. It's going to happen. One of your direct reports will need something right now, right? If you consider your role as the leader to be to like clear obstacles for your staff, you're going to have lots of expected unexpecteds. But of course, if you spend time on that, it's time well spent because you're allowing other people to proceed with their part of a project without any obstacles. If there's an event, there's going to be expected unexpecteds, right? There's going to be last minute stuff that has to happen. Say a high profile deliverable comes up. We get an assignment from somebody who's like above, above, above. All of a sudden, we're going to drop everything and we're going to do the expected unexpected. Unfortunately, sometimes we have crises, expected, unexpected. And then there are times where we just do not have any energy, right? And the other people around us might not either. It might feel like nobody's working because everybody's drained. We just don't have the giddy up that we need. So building in time for expected unexpecteds is really important. And those are the ones that are important and urgent. But we don't want to be spending all of our time in that because we want to be working on the things that are like thoughtful and methodical in that other quadrant, the important and not urgent one. Now, there's a not important, not urgent, which is an easy way to get sucked in and spend a whole heck of a lot of time on things that don't matter, the tyranny of small events. You can be doing anything under the sun to avoid a project or a task that you don't want to do. A huge time waster is polling. So that's like when we already know the answer to something, but we want to ask a whole bunch of other people if they agree with us. Not a good use of time. You know what the answer is. If you need to phone a friend, okay, but let's not go around asking everybody for their opinion. FYI stuff, like you have to be careful about how much of the FYI information you get yourself into. Just be discerning about that. Juicy rabbit holes, oh my goodness gracious. One of the biggest rabbit holes I have is anything related to data analytics. So give me a data set, I will find a rabbit hole. So learning like what are those kind of things that tempt you to completely get, off track and avoiding those at all costs. For example, like I leave time, specific time for me to review our data, knowing that like I do it at the end of the day because then there's a definite stopping point. Like I have to stop looking at it and have to stop thinking of ways to fix the data that I don't like. Oftentimes when we're revising something for the 86th time, we're no longer making it better. We're just making it different. And usually we're doing it to avoid something that we want to avoid. And then there's just that like one more thing phenomenon. Let me just do one more thing with this, one more thing with that, one more. And it's oftentimes just, it's not important and it's not urgent. And then there's that quadrant that feels urgent, but it's not important. And this is like, for me, one of the biggest struggles. And most of it comes through my screen, whether it's email or Slack or one of my 8 bajillion project management tools pinging me, or my CRM or my funnels or blah, 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 blah. Like anything when I open up my computer and it's like, oh my God, there's stuff coming at me from every different direction and I have to make 1,000 decisions. And by 10 a.m., my brain is exhausted from decision fatigue. So one of the things that happens is I just go thing by thing by thing by thing. And before I know it, hours have gone by and I don't know what I have accomplished. I've like done all the things that I'm supposed to do, but lots of them are very low value. They feel urgent because they're right here in my face while I'm sitting still, but they're not important. So that is my interpretation of the Eisenhower Matrix. I would suggest taking time, just scratching this out on a piece of paper for yourself, looking at your week, trying to reorganize things a little bit so that you're putting some really good energy into those things that are important and not urgent. All right, now I want to talk about the big rocks first method. Um, we can only, I heard something today about priorities, and what the person was saying is that priorities isn't really plural. You can only have one priority. I've always thought of this as like, what is my main thing for the day? There's the main thing. There's also the big three. And then there's all these little small events, like the tyranny of small events. If I do those small events first, right? Because they're there and they're coming at me and they're in my face, right? I do all those, da, 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 da. Okay, it fills up. Now it's like noon, right? I have filled the bucket up with small events and it's noon and I've only got a few more hours to get the other things done, those big three and my main thing. If that's the approach I take, I'm barely even going to get to my main thing, right? Like, look, it's like half teetering out because I'm already at the very top of the bucket. I haven't gotten to it yet and it's almost the end of the day. Versus if we put the big rocks in first, we can get a bunch of them done, right? We can get like 3 big things done if we do them first because the rocks are there. They're taking up their own space, all the space that they need. And then the little rocks, AKA the sand, can fill in around the edges with the space that's left. So you're able to get your main things done, your big 3, and maybe even a whole bunch of small events because you've done the big rocks first. You've put them in first. Those are my 3 biggest, most important, and most helpful time management tools. It's the big rocks first method, the Eisenhower Matrix to spend most of your time in the important and not urgent zone, and then the fact versus fiction matrix. So I want you to be spending time with the people in your portfolio who are willing to have a gift conversation and who have a high likelihood of you being able to solicit them. And as you rank order those, you're going to focus on the people who are engaged with your organization already. All right. I hope this was helpful. Please check below or in the comments all around. I would love to hear how you're going through your time management, how it's working for you, what tools you might have, what questions you might have, and most likely I'll be leaving you a resource somewhere. So check around, okay? All right. Thank you. Again, I'm Anne with the Empowered Fundraiser. Take care.